You're listening to the FairTax for All radio program, where we bring you everything and anything FairTax related. And now, your host, Alex Molesky.
Welcome to the FairTax for All radio show, where our discussion is centered around taxes, specifically the current income tax code. Our main goals are to educate and inform in order to eliminate the IRS and our horrendous tax code. Listen in this next hour, and I'll hopefully entertain you and maybe share something new that you haven't heard yet about the IRS and taxes and all sorts of fun reform we can get going. Before I get too far into the show, I always like to give those of you that are new to the FairTax a brief intro to it. The FairTax is a bill that eliminates the IRS and replaces the current tax code with a national sales tax of 23% on new goods and services. Not used, not sold homes, used homes reselling it, or a car. Also not even education. Isn't that nice? Betterment. No more FICA taxes out of your paychecks. The 23% sales tax collects the tax dollars needed to fund those FICA taxes, which are Medicare and Social Security. The fair tax does not eliminate any government plans, just the collection method of taxation. In addition to replacing the income tax, the fair tax also provides each Social Security card holding person a monthly prepaid check to cover the 23% sales tax up to the poverty level. This is not welfare. It is only to ensure we are not taxed on the necessities of life. The fair tax lowers the tax rate on every tax bracket, everyone, and at the same time helps to address the issue of our growing unsustainable national debt. It is a tax plan that shrinks the size of government and puts every American in a better financial position. Please go to fairtaxcalculator.org and enter your own numbers to see if you'd be better off under the fair tax. I know you would be. Trust me, I've done it. I've entered a whole bunch of numbers. And you know what? I might need to do some sort of a screen grab and test just to show that to people. Just put in a whole bunch of other ones. Might have to put up a slideshow on that one. Anyway, today on our show, I want to follow up on the affordable health care. I also want to try to get some more of the great fair tax questions. And I also want to play you a great fair tax clip. So listen in for the next hour, soak up some great fair tax information. And after the show, we'll have Mr. Dennis Prager on with some of his best from last week. But before all this, I want to start with Robert Redford and his recent tax woes. Jeremy, I might have to call on you because I didn't set my clock here. So when I start running out, I want to see those signals so I know I'm not yapping over my commercials. Anyway, this is on Robert Redford. I'm feeling for the man. And it looks like the Sundance Kid is in trouble with the law coming after some tax dollars. He might be fleeing to Bolivia like his famed Butch Cassidy in the Sundance Kid movie character. Though probably not a good idea for him considering his net worth is an estimated $170 million. I think Mr. Redford will be able to figure out some way out of his current jam. He'll be able to afford getting out of it. Here's a scoop in case you haven't heard about it. That's interesting. He's suing New York State Department of Taxation and Finance for a letter they sent him in May. They are taxing him almost $1.6 million over money made from the sale of his Sundance channel all the way back in 2005. New York is taxing him over over $845,000 in taxes, plus, get this, over $727,000 in interest owed. Since his residence is in Utah, Redford states he already paid the interest owed to on his home state and owes New York nothing. Say he's already paid the taxes. So, according to the complaint, Redford is seeking let me get this right, a declaratory ruling on a pure question of law concerning the constitutionality of imposing on plaintiff, a non-resident of the state of New York, a personal income tax on the gain derived from the sale of an ownership interest in a limited liability company. Bottom line is he's saying, I'm not paying it because he doesn't feel he has to. Sounds like Mr. Redford is getting stung here. I know, get the movie pun again. Need to hear some, Joplin music played in the background, piano. Anyway, Definitely a tax thing. Yes, movie references, Jeremy. I don't know. You might be too young to know all those great Robert Redford movies from the 70s and stuff and 60s anyway. It really sounds like a bunch of bull, Durham, to me. Whoops. Wrong actor. Wrong movie.
Can you squeeze in the natural somehow?
I was just going to. I said it's only natural for me to make mistakes, isn't it?
Dang it, I jumped the gun.
I think Redford must be crying foul. I don't know. Anyway, I'm corny, folks. Hey, that's what happens when you start getting over the age of 40. You get a little seasoned, a little bit stale. I don't know. Anyway, here's the complicated part of the lawsuit that was filed in New York State's Supreme Court, and I just wanted to put this out. Redford was the sole owner of a closely held company called Sundance TV in 2005. Through that company, Redford owned an 85% stake in the Sundance TV Limited, and it was the latter entity that sold a portion of its 20% stake in the Sundance Channel in 2005, the lawsuit claims. The Sundance Channel is based in New York, but neither Sundance TV nor Sundance Television Limited had an office, property, or employee in the state, according to the copy of the suit obtained by the Daily News, which is where I've gotten a bunch of this information. Redford said he included the gain on his 2005 tax return in his home state of Utah and considered the matter closed. Wouldn't you consider the matter closed, folks? I don't know. New York later audited the deal and sent him the surprise bill, according to the lawsuit. So they waited about 8.5 years, 9. Does that amount? Anyway, he also said an audit of the 2008 transaction ended with New York State officials agreeing he filed correctly. The new lawsuit by Redford asked for a declaratory ruling on a pure question of law concerning the constitutionality of imposing on plaintiff, a non-resident of New York, as I mentioned, a personal income tax on the gain derived from the sale of an ownership interest in a limited liability company. It's interesting, I think. I have a feeling, though, this is not going to work out in Mr. Redford's favor. You're asking why? The business was started in New York State. The key word is based. It was started and based in New York State. So what I'm thinking right now, what's going through my head in regards to the story, a few things. One, I believe the state will claim as a sole owner or S corp that Redford will be responsible to pay New York State income taxes. Hey, they all want their money no matter how they can get it. Two, it's not as bad as you think. The tax part, not at all. The penalties, yes, and here's why. He paid the Utah taxes on his gains. He can't pay. They can't force him to pay both Utah and New York State. So if it's decided he owes New York State, then Utah will owe him the money back, right? Somebody's going to judge one way. It might even go to a federal level. The problem falls within the legal fees, and particularly the penalties and interest, which are almost as great as the taxes owed, apparently, or claimed to be owed to New York. Will he be liable for those fees? That's where my guess is yes. Utah won't pay him back, and New York will try to claim those. Maybe I'm stretching a little bit. I'm guessing he can get the fees levied, but he'll have to get his money back and go through all that rigmarole, and he'll pay tens and tens of thousands of dollars in lawyer fees and tax accountant fees, which he can afford, but still, it's invasive, I feel, even though it's a state level. I do understand this is a state case and not a federal, so I can't blame the IRS for this one as much as I'd like to. I still like discussing it since it just shows more tax confusion. I know some of you are wondering why Mr. Redford, different actor. Now I'm really confusing them all. Why he doesn't follow the inversion loopholes I mentioned on previous shows, where corporations create new headquarters in lower tax countries like Ireland. Won't be surprised if Mr. Redford gets fed up and figures out some sort of a loophole where none of his tax dollars end up in the U.S. I said that I know it's not a federal case, so no IRS is involved, and the IRS, as you know, has been accused of targeting conservative groups. All evidence points towards this being obviously true, so I don't think we can argue that. But now, a very well-known liberal celebrity seems to be the target of New York State. I like the balancing going on. Just kidding. I don't like anybody getting targeted for taxes owned under confusing laws What I like is that the target is someone that A, can afford to defend himself. It is I feel, kind of a harassment, but he has a huge celebrity name to bring attention to the case. And since he is also a known liberal and most of the known recent targeting on tax-related issues have been conservatives, this just shows that we are all susceptible to what I deem unfair target practice by tax enforcement agencies. So all things said, Mr. Redford, I feel bad for you having to go through this. I definitely do. Especially when Mr. Redford, by every piece I've seen, I think he's compliant in paying his taxes owed. Jeremy, can you try that number that I gave you earlier, maybe? And how much time do I have left? You can
We got
speak.
like 2 minutes. I'm going to do it right now.
Okay, thanks. I don't see the clock. I didn't set my clock, folks. So, but anyway, I did contact Jeremy's calling Sundance, and I asked him to comment and received nothing as of yet. So I just wanted to call them. Maybe you can reach him this morning. I understand with lawsuits there may be no comments, and I can completely understand this. So I wish Mr. Redford the best of luck. I also want him to know that he can reach out to the show should he want our support on this matter.
Good morning,
It might be a state matter, but it's still an area we have some experience. Are they on by any chance?
You got him.
Oh, hey, Sundance. I just had a quick question, and if there's no comment, I completely understand. I'm taping my radio show here, this segment, a little bit early about Mr. Redford getting his lawsuit against the state of New York. We're really upset for what's going on with him. I just didn't know if Sundance had any comment at all.
We do not have a comment.
I figured you might not to with a lawsuit, but anyway, just want to let you know the FairTax for All radio show out here in Phoenix, Arizona, we support him. And we hope everything works out wonderfully for him. So just so he knows, there's some more good vibes going around from this side, okay?
Well, thank you very much.
I appreciate you taking the call. Take care.
Bye.
Yeah, I couldn't put them on the spot, folks. I understand they can't answer that. So like I said, we wish them luck, and I will definitely keep an ear out on this case and share updates as I get more information to share with you. Part of me wishes we could call on one of Mr. Redford's character and alter his powers. Instead of a horse whisperer to understand horses, maybe we could, find a tax whisperer to understand income tax laws and fix that, right? Some sort of a celebrity fix, some sort of a superhero fix on that. So again, best of luck, Mr. Redford, and folks, we'll keep you abreast on that one. It's interesting. It's interesting. Be right back, folks, after this word from our sponsors. Hang in there. Welcome back to the FairTax for All radio show. I'm your host, Alex Molesky. We're having fun. We're talking about the fair tax, keeping you informed of ways that we can replace the current tax code with the fair tax. And we were just speaking to the Sundance office in California, I believe. Redford's one of Redford's offices, businesses. We were speaking about Robert Redford and him and the state of New York and his lawsuit against them. People are claiming he owes money and just more convoluted taxes, this time on state levels. So we just need to simplify the tax code, folks, on a national level, and you can also do it on a state level. Mr. Redford would not be going through this stuff if his business had been based in, say, Texas, and he lived in Florida. He wouldn't be filing any taxes. Anyway, hopefully we can get that in Arizona here, folks. I'd like to discuss some local news and some stuff in the news in the last couple of days. I received an email from Congressman Trent Franks, and Jeremy, we're not calling his office because the staff did not have a comment today because they're running a little late on staffers today. I think a lot of people are out on a Friday or avoiding the heat or on the road, basically. And I kind of, it's not nice to call, a few minutes before you're, airing your segment and asking for information. But I got this. This is interesting. Proposition 122, and I think Arizona voters should know about this one. The Arizona State Sovereignty Amendment, Proposition 122, is on the November 4th, 2014 general election ballot in Arizona as a legislatively referred constitutional amendment. This is interesting. The measure of approval would create a mechanism by which state personnel and financial resources could only be used for purposes that are deemed congruent with the federal Constitution by the state. Basically, the state's allowed to say, hey, federal government, you're not following the rules. We don't need to follow you. And we can create our own rules in regards to what's best for our state. Something that I feel should be done anyway, but I'm not sure how I feel about this. I need to read a little bit more into Prop 122. But the proposition passed the House and the Senate in Arizona and is on the November 4th ballot. The bottom line is, if passed, it gives the state the ability to circumvent bad policy. A few examples so you might be interested in hearing about this, and this should be considered by other states, if not already. A few examples of where this could come into play would maybe be Child Protective Services, which was abolished and replaced by the Department of Child Safety in Phoenix, in Arizona, the whole state. They now have a backlog of over 6,000 cases and very much scandal in regards to that. It's not doesn't seem to be working out as well as people would want it to. Bad cases, deaths, places where we can't actually access records because it's deemed private. So little problems with that one. Another one, the Affordable Care Act. Some Arizonans, as you well know, residents have lost their insurance due to not all of the 10 requirements, I guess, being made by the insurance companies, meeting the Affordable Health Care rules. This would allow people to actually keep their policies. Just another way they might be able to circumvent. I believe another one, I said I'd mention a few. I'm not sure if this is true, but remember when they were trying to close our little park we call the Grand Canyon when the rangers didn't have enough folks, or they were saying we're going to have the park rangers because the government was shutting down. That might allow us to put our own personnel in place and keep the parks open. The bottom line is this AZ law would allow for the state to act in what it deems is in its best interest. I wonder if we could throw paying federal income taxes into that one. You never know. Anyway, let's move on. I don't always like sharing news that's in the IRS's favor, but I've got to share this one. Just a small update on the never-ending IRS investigation. They won a round, actually, the investigation battle the other day. A federal judge rejected a conservative group's bid for a court-appointed forensics expert to hunt for ex-official Lois Lerner's lost emails. Judge Reggie Walton of the U.S. District Court of the District of Columbia said True the Vote's lawsuit against IRS failed to show irreparable harm in its injunction relief request, and that the public interest weighs strongly against this type of injunctive relief the plaintiff seeks. Despite the general distrust of the defendants expressed by the plaintiff, the court has no factual basis to concur with that distrust of the IRS, and therefore concludes that the issuance of an injunction will not further aid in the recovery of the emails, if such recovery is possible, but will rather only duplicate and potentially interfere with ongoing investigative activities. He wrote in a court memorandum and posted it Wednesday afternoon. This may be good, may be bad. It might be good because it allows a different court. There's multiple investigations going in there, multiple suits against the IRS or claims against them. Might allow for other lawyers to go different angles and attack this if it looks like it's not going to play through going one route. All I can say, though, as far as the distrust, the general distrust, and they found that the court, there's no factual basis on this distrust of the IRS. Anybody listening out there, please contact me at alex@mollusky.com if you truly, truly trust the IRS, truly trust that it can be completely trusted, the IRS and the powers that are controlling it. I think I might know the name of a doctor and get you some help. No, I'm just kidding. But seriously, no disrespect to the employees of the IRS. I've said it before that my guess is a vast majority of the IRS employees are very good people that don't abuse the powers of the IRS. I think it's been shown that the IRS is used by the powers in government as a tool of intimidation. I don't know if I have ever really understood the tax code or trusted in its fairness. But right now, I really don't have trust in the organization as a whole because of the abuse we've seen. And I don't know that trust will ever be wholly healed. I don't think it can be, nor do I think the IRS deserves to be ever wholly trusted again. Sorry, it's just my feeling. Sort of like a bad relationship. It's toxic. And you know it's the IRS and not you that is the bad egg in this relationship. That's all on that. I just wanted to give you an update, whether bad or good. I just want to keep you in the loop. I mean, we hear a lot of good, movement getting made in regards to the cases against the IRS. And every once in a while, hey, 2 steps forward, 1 back, bunny hop. I don't know. We just don't want the IRS growing like the tax code is, kind of like bunnies. Anyway, what else do I want to mention today? Later on in the show, we're going to have Congressman Rob Woodall. We're going to play a speech that he had a couple years ago. It's brilliant. He, as you may know, is the sponsor in the House of the FairTax bill, and he's a great orator, and he's from one of my favorite states of Georgia. And I also want to mention that I do have the FairTax radio show challenge. I want you to challenge me to find something about the FairTax that is a lie. I always ask you to, or you think is unfair, or maybe not fully true. There are tiny little Swiss cheese holes in it, but it's like baby Swiss cheese, as I mentioned, not the big Swiss cheese. So reach out to me by visiting Molesky.com and post your thoughts or challenges to me via email or the Facebook link right there. I want to hear from you. I want your likes. I want your shares. I want you to get the word out about the FairTax. We're going to go to break. I'll be right back with more FairTax news after these messages. Hold on. Welcome back to the FairTax for All radio show. I'm your host, Alex Molesky, here, having fun talking about the FairTax. Here's an update that I meant to bring up to you a couple weeks ago, and it's about the Affordable Health Care, or as many call it, Obamacare. I know it's been covered just, here and just about everywhere. I just want to recap for a minute what I've said before on the health care and then add a little new news, recent news. So listen in, it's interesting. I'll do a very brief FairTax mix in here. But from the negative, poor rollout of the position, to the positive coverage for a pre-existing condition, and somewhere in between the unknown final costs associated, there's a little mix in here in FairTax. And it's still, I'm going to be clear, it's too early for me to say will pay more or less in my family for health care under this law. Here on the show, I've made it clear that the Obamacare is a tax on the wealthy. No doubt about it. It's simply, it's in there. You see that it's an increase in taxation. I'm not saying anything we don't already know by stating that. Chief Justice Roberts, with his deciding vote, stated that as his reasoning that he could vote for the bill. Obamacare is a tax on the wealthy, and I've covered it on the show. Once again, here's the brief on that. There was the creation of a new 3.8% surtax on investment income earned in households making at least $250,000 a year for a married couple, or $200,000 for those filing as single. This would result in the following top tax rates on investment income. So it's a tax. Additionally, there was a hike in the Medicare payroll, almost a 1% raise in income tax for wages over $200,000 if single and $250,000 if married. Let me be clear. I appreciate some things about Obamacare. Number one being the exemption of pre-existing conditions. You can't deny that that's needed, just don't know the methodology was correct in my mind. But anyway, there's something very noble about wanting to make sure every person has adequate health care. You just be upset with it, but don't deny that. I see some glaring weaknesses in this bill, such as the obvious poor website debacle. That's not the bill or the law. That's just the rollout. But I've been moaning since before Obamacare was presented to the public that we needed to allow for insurance companies to go across state lines. Why in the world, before there was an affordable health care, did I pay twice as much on my insurance in one state versus the state I moved to? Makes absolutely no sense. The doctors are just as good. Hence, I have disbelief that allowing insurance companies to go across state line wasn't the first fix in the healthcare system. That's where they should have gone. That's my recap on this. Some good, a lot bad, whatever. But let me tell you the newer news. What is new, and yet again, another new twist in the affordable healthcare laws, is that the Obama administration just provided a big waiver from the law's major coverage provisions. This is at the end of July, folks, that they did this. The Affordable Care Act's design created a big problem for the U.S. territories. It required insurances there? How about insurers? That sounds like a better word.
You know, the fair tax is a tax bill, but at its heart, it's a freedom bill. You know, what the fair tax is, Mr. Speaker, if you hadn't looked at it recently, it's a fundamental change in the way we tax America. Today, we tax income, and of course, the power to tax is the power to destroy. The power to tax, the power to destroy. I ask young people when I go to schools to speak, I say, who wants to come to work for me? I'm going to work you hard, and I'm going to work you long, but I'm going to get you $10 an hour. $10 an hour. I get a couple of hands that go up. Apparently, $10 an hour is not as much today as it was back in my day. I'd have jumped at $10 an hour, but I get hands that go up for $10 an hour. Then I say, but I'm going to have to tax you $9 of that, so you're only going to be able to take home $1. Now who wants to come work long hours for me? All the hands go down. The power to tax productivity is the power to destroy productivity. The power to tax income is the power to destroy income. Why? Why do we want to destroy that makes this country great? So the fair tax shifts that paradigm. Instead of taxing what people produce, we want to tax what people consume, a consumption tax. You've all seen it. It's in your sales tax back home on what you consume, and we could do it. We could do it. I'll tell you, the fair tax is a jobs program, because when we stop taxing productivity, we get more of it. That creates jobs. I'll tell you, the fair tax is about transparency. You know, Mr. Speaker, the payroll tax, that 15.3 cents out of every dollar that comes out of your paycheck, Mr. Speaker, that FICA line that you see, now 7.65% comes from the employee. The other 7.65 is hidden as an employer tax, but it's a 15.3% payroll tax. Did you know, Mr. Speaker, that 80% of American families pay more in the payroll tax than they do in the income tax? 80% of American families pay more in the payroll tax than they do in the income tax. Now, I just got back from Thanksgiving. I've got doctors in my family. I've got teachers in my family. I've got all sorts of folks, so I can assure you, Mr. Speaker, I got an earful throughout the entire Thanksgiving dinner. It was more of a 3-day festival for me, Thanksgiving, different sides of the family coming into town, and I got lots of good advice about how we should do things differently up here. But you know, not one person mentioned the payroll tax. No, the income tax was a hot topic. Hot topic. But nobody mentioned the payroll tax, and it's the biggest tax that 80% of Americans pay. Why? Because the payroll tax is hidden in every single paycheck that you get. You don't feel it. The government gets its share first. You get your share second. You don't feel it go away unless, Mr. Speaker, you're one of the self-employed folks in America. And instead of paying the 15.3% payroll tax, you pay the equivalent 15.3% self-employment tax. And then you feel the bite of that tax each and every day. You know that's the biggest tax that you pay. The fair tax, instead of allowing all of those taxes to be hidden in business taxes, hidden in income taxes, hidden in payroll taxes, separated out so you don't feel the pain, the fair tax takes your entire federal tax burden and sticks it into one rate, a sales tax on everything that you buy. One rate. Now, that rate would have to be 23%. That's a big number. 23% is what the sales tax rate, the payroll tax, the fair tax rate would need to be in order to replace federal income taxes on businesses, on individuals, federal payroll taxes on businesses, on individuals, the gift tax, the death tax, the capital gains tax, the dividend tax, all of those federal taxes on income. The fair tax could replace them all with a 23% personal consumption tax there at the cash register. And you'd see it, Mr. Speaker. Can you imagine? Today I can just raise an excise tax here, raise 0.25% on an income tax there. I can do lots of funny math, as they like to do in Washington, D.C. Because folks can't feel the pain. They always think, oh, it's not going to tax me. It's going to tax somebody else. Yes, I vote yes because it's going to tax him instead of me. The fair tax puts us all in the same boat and lets us see how much the United States government costs us. You know, I'm a cost-conscious shopper, Mr. Speaker. I brought a marker down here with me today just in case I had to write any big red marks on my chart. This was free with rebate at Office Max last week. I don't know if anybody else got it. Free with rebate for this marker. Dollars and cents matter. We make different decisions in our personal purchasing life when we experience those costs. Transparency lets you know how much your government is costing you. Does everybody want a free marker? Yes. Does everybody want to pay the $6.95 it would have been if it wasn't free with rebate? I think not. Puts the entire cost of government out where you can see it. And most importantly, the fair tax is about individual freedom. Folks, have you thought about how the tax code manipulates your life? It doesn't matter whether you sit on the far right over here with the Republicans or you sit on the far left over there with Democrats. Sometimes something happens when you show up in Washington, D.C., and you do. You believe you're the smartest person in the room. Everybody tells you how wonderful you are. You think your ideas are so great. And you decide, you know what? I should reward people for doing this behavior, and I should punish them from doing that behavior. And if I do it, they'll be happier, and America will be better. So what am I going to do? I'm going to put a tax on gasoline because I don't want people driving to work. That's bad. And then I'm going to put a tax credit on electric vehicles, right? Because that's green. We were talking about green earlier, Mr. Speaker. So I'm going to put a tax credit on electric vehicles. So I'm going to punish those people who buy oil at the community gas station, and I'm going to reward those people who go out and buy these $60,000, $70,000, and $80,000 electric vehicles. Well, I don't actually think. But we have the power to do that. We can manipulate your behavior every day of the week by changing how the tax code touches your pocketbook. You know, I was talking about that electric vehicle tax credit. That wasn't just an example. That wasn't just something I made up. Do you remember when the president passed, this president passed his energy bill? It included in it a tax credit, $6,500, for everyone who would go out and buy an electric vehicle. Well, again, the Volt was not on the market at the time in the 40s, and the only electric vehicles out there were in the $80,000, $90,000 range. But Americans are industrious, which is why if you leave America to Americans, we're going to be just fine. But Americans are industrious, and what they just found out was if they put brake lights on their golf cart, side view mirrors, some good seat belts up front, some headlights, and windshield wipers, that the Department of Transportation would certify that golf cart as a road-ready vehicle, and they could get the $6,500 tax credit. Oh. Now, it turns out you can't buy an American-made golf cart for $6,500. Our golf carts are a little more expensive than that. But our friends in China, not only are they willing to share their oil with us, guess what? They're willing to share their golf carts with us, too. So it turned out, at the end of tax year 2009, Americans were literally standing in line for a VIN number for a Chinese golf cart so that they could claim this tax credit. Free golf carts for all. Did anybody get one, Mr. Speaker? Did you get that free golf cart? Don't tell me if you did. I know some folks who did. I'm not proud of it, but I know some folks who did. Free golf carts for all from the United States tax code. Folks, when we bring all that power and all that authority here, it gives us the power to manipulate your life, and we don't always manipulate it for the powers of good. And I would tell you, even when we are trying to manipulate it for the powers of good, as the president was trying to manipulate it for the powers of good in his energy bill, we run afoul. We run afoul. Why do we need to pay people to engage in behavior? We make those decisions each and every day. The fair tax abolishes the income tax code so that no longer can people who think they're the smartest person in the room in Washington tell you how to live your life.